The wind howled, snow lashed against his face. Each breath was a battle. The world had become a white void, swallowing him whole. He stumbled onward, driven by a faint hope of shelter. His fingers, numb and clumsy, clutched at his thin coat. The cold seeped into his bones, whispering of oblivion. He couldn't go on much longer. His vision blurred. Was that a shape in the distance? He blinked, trying to clear his eyes. The shape remained, a dark rectangle against the blinding white. As he staggered closer, his heart pounded in his chest. Could it be? Shelter at last. He stumbled, falling to his knees in the snow. The shape resolved itself into a chest. It sat upon the snow, untouched and pristine. The blizzard seemed to swirl around it, yet it remained clear of snow. It was a strange, beautiful thing. Crafted of dark wood, it gleamed faintly even in the dim light. Intricate carvings, picked out in red and gold, adorned its surface. He crawled towards it, drawn by a desperate hope. His frozen fingers traced the carvings. He ran his hand over the smooth surface. It was warm, almost hot, as if lit from within. A shiver ran down his spine. He pulled his hand back as if burned. This was wrong. This was unnatural. He backed away from the chest, his fear warring with his need. He needed shelter, he needed warmth. But something about the chest filled him with a deep unease. It was too perfect, too out of place in this desolate landscape. He watched it, his breath misting in the air. The chest remained where it was, a beacon of warmth and strangeness in the swirling snow. It emanated a low hum, a vibration that seemed to resonate in his very bones. He closed his eyes, trying to ignore the pull of the chest. He needed to think, to rationalize, but the cold was sapping his strength, his will. He awoke to the smell of wood smoke. He sat up, disoriented, his heart pounding. The storm had passed. He was lying in a shallow depression in the snow, sheltered from the wind. And the chest? It was there beside him, closer than before. Smoke rose from a small fire built in front of it. He scrambled back, fear gripping him. How had it gotten here? Had it followed him? The thought sent chills down his spine. He watched it warily, his hand hovering near the knife at his belt. The chest sat still, silent and watchful, like a predator assessing its prey. Hunger gnawed at his belly. He hadn't eaten in days. He eyed the chest, his stomach churning with apprehension. He cautiously approached, never taking his eyes off it. As he drew closer, he noticed something new. A loaf of bread, still warm, lay on the chest's surface. Beside it, a steaming cup, its contents smelling richly of broth. He hesitated. Was it a trap? He couldn't afford to be cautious. He was starving. He snatched the bread, his fingers brushing against the warm surface of the chest. He recoiled, expecting pain. But there was nothing, only warmth. He sank his teeth into the bread. It was the most delicious thing he'd ever tasted. Section 6. Warmth in the wilderness. He ate quickly, ravenously, the warm broth chasing away the chill in his bones. As he ate, he felt a change in the air. The temperature seemed to rise around him. The snow beneath him began to melt, forming a dry patch. He looked at the chest, his eyes wide with disbelief. The warmth intensified, radiating outwards from the chest. Soon he was sitting in a pool of melted snow, steam rising from his damp clothes. He felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. The chest, once a source of fear, now felt comforting, like a hearth in the wilderness. Section 7. From Fear to Gratitude. He spent the night huddled near the chest, its warmth enveloping him like a blanket. He had never slept so soundly. He woke to a clear, bright morning. The snow glittered under a cloudless sky. He looked at the chest, a strange feeling welling up inside him. Gratitude, this strange, impossible object, had saved his life. It had fed him, warmed him, sheltered him from the storm. He didn't understand it, but he couldn't deny the kindness it had shown him. He reached out, his hand hovering over the intricate carvings. He wanted to thank it, to understand. Section 8. Farewell to the strange chest, but as he reached out, the chest began to glow. The light intensified, blinding him. He shielded his eyes, stumbling back. When he could see again, the chest was gone. The only evidence of its existence was a small, smouldering fire and a faint warmth that lingered in the air. And beside the fire, something new. A small bag, made of the same dark wood as the chest, lay on the ground. He picked it up, his fingers tracing the familiar red and gold carvings. It was warm to the touch. He opened it, his heart pounding. Section 9. Reflections in the warmth. Inside the bag he found food. Fresh bread, dried meat, and a small flask filled with something sweet and hot. He sat there by the remnants of the fire, eating his breakfast. The sun, warm on his face, felt like a blessing. He would be all right, he would live. He looked back at the empty space where the chest had been, his heart filled with a strange mix of wonder and loss. He would never forget this night, nor the strange and wonderful thing that had saved him. He slung the bag over his shoulder and set off, following the rising sun towards the distant promise of civilization. He carried with him the memory of the chest, and the knowledge that even in the darkest depths of despair, kindness could be found in the most unexpected places.